Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Omar Hargrove, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about beyond the screen, uncovering the value of in-person interactions. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of having in-person ministry, and we're going to talk about the value of both having online and face-to-face presence. And we're also going to unpack the necessity of building person-to-person experiences and how that is able to build your character, your perception, and even your life skills, your leadership skills. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to give you 3 takeaways to be able to help you directly apply what we talk about in today's episode to your own leadership within your organization by tapping into your hidden potential. We do that with practical and mental tools. Now, let's get started with a big thought, and that is it's easier now more than ever to project a message for others to hear because of online platforms. You don't need anyone's permission to start a live video, to launch a podcast, to make a post. And any person who is convincing enough can create an online following that goes to them for guidance, lessons, or even advice. And the only problem with this is that if your only experience is online experience, then you will run out of relatability and sound perception quickly. Without actual in-person ministry experiences, you will be limited to tested and tried feedback. And you run this high risk of pretty much making things up as you go. And if your messages and your posts become unhinged like that, you'll end up being a story of the blind leading the blind. And the reason that this is so important to talk about is because not only are there so many aspiring leaders who give up because their following outgrew their ability or their maturity, but there are also so many people who were following that kind of person who end up hurt or led astray because that person didn't really have the experience to what they were talking about. As an example for what I'm saying to give value to this, may not be online experience, but experience in general, was the author of the book Kissing Dating Goodbye. I think his name was Josh Harris, and it was one of the most popular books, sold over 1 million copies, mostly among churches and youth groups. And it was this whole projection about how Christians should not date and how the Bible never talks about dating, that we should only court each other. And it gives this idea of pretty much like liking someone and marrying them, and then you get to know them, that dating is, just not biblical. And it was really this indirect attempt to, a lot of churches would propagate this message to try to convince young people to avoid, for sexual purity and avoid dating, just don't date. Like, I think a lot of 90s and early 2000s youth ministry, even today, is mainly just a youth pastor saying, don't date, don't have sex. And so this book was perfect for them. The only problem was that it was ideas that sounded nice at the time, but they had no experience to back it up. This is a young guy in his early 20s, wrote a book, got very popular feedback. It made a lot of online engagement, and it wasn't tested and tried. Not only do thousands of people attribute this book doing more harm than good in their lives, to where the author received all of these letters, all these emails about how damaging that type of courtship dating, whatever you want to call it, while applying what was talked about in the book, they say ruined their marriage, ruined their lives, that in fact led them to divorce. Like, they blamed the author so much so that in 2018, the author took the book from shelves, made it to where people could not purchase the book because he himself, after a decade later of experiences, denounced the book and all of its teachings entirely. And just a year after that, he himself ended up filing for divorce, getting separated, and denounced his faith as a Christian altogether. I think a big major part of all these people that were hurt, and even this guy's own faith feeling tested and tried, was summed up in this idea that he had without real experiences to go along with it. It can be dangerous, not just to yourself, but to many others. So let's kind of break this down. Let's talk about what face value can be. And on the good side of online presence, I think that people, especially ministers and leaders, need to make an effort to have an online presence. If you want to be effective in today's world, you have to learn how to market yourself so that you have the possibility to reach more people. And when I say market yourself, I mean you as a leader slash influencer or your ministry. And you have to be able to reach people, and most people are reached through online engagement. And an online presence is almost like your informal introduction to any person that may have interaction with you. You know, we have like our formal resumes that we put in. Well, everything that we do online is an informal resume to anybody that might listen to us. And whether it's your potential follower or even the possibility of a future partner, maybe a future decision maker that would want you to minister at their organization, their ministry, they're going to look at your online presence. You're going to look at what you got in your social media, on your Instagram, on your Twitter, whatever it is. And you should try to make yourself available because of that. Make yourself available online so that people can know who you are and what you do. And there's so much more that can come from online ministry. See, ministry online is an effective way to reach people who would most likely never have heard your message if it was only available in person. And learning how to minister through videos and through posts can be an incredibly successful tool to use in making a difference in people's lives, as well as advancing your own potential influence. So be not mistaken, this episode is not saying that we should just throw off social media, that it's all of the devil. It's nothing like that. That's not what I'm saying. You need to be online. You need to have an online presence. It's an effective tool, and it is one of the quickest ways to be able to get access into people's lives, to be able to hear your message. Now, that being said, let's focus the rest of this time on the importance of in-person presence. See, the in-person presence, as much as online influence is meaningful, there's nothing like being there in person. It's one thing to talk about something, but it's another level when you're setting the example by being in the thick of it. See, when you're seeing actual events by people, other ministries, other decision makers, when they're seeing you there, you are showing evidence to your message. You're not just talking about it, you're giving proof to it. And there's a greater impact when you're seen in person compared to when you're seen online. And it makes me think about, even just when it comes to like ministry opportunities. So just about every ministry opportunity that I've had to go speak and minister somewhere else was because of the actual in-person ministry that I was a part of. There was some event, not even mine, just another event that I went to go support of, or I went to go volunteer at, that I went to attend, and rubbing actual shoulders with people is what will cause more, I don't know the right lingo to use, but like more visibility for you to be able to be noticed, to get asked to minister somewhere else. I mean, if you really believe in the message that you have, the ministry that you're offering, that God has called you to, then you'd want people to ask you to share that with their audience. And I don't know of any engagement that I've been asked of that was through strictly online means. It was almost every single time was in-person connection. So it's just a big difference. Today's episode is brought to you by Gravetop Designs online store. Visit gravetopdesigns.com/shop to find custom-made Christian clothing that's edgy and actually looks good. I crafted all of the designs myself, so I'd love to hear your feedback and tell me what you think. Share your next purchase on Instagram and tag Gravetop Designs for a chance to get 10% off your next order. Shop today, help support this channel. Again, that's gravetopdesigns.com/shop. Now, let's talk about kind of like the building blocks of being in person. See, it's not just having this face value to where it gives you more credibility, but it has these building blocks to yourself as a minister. See, doing ministry in person. It builds a sense of resolve as you interact with people face to face. And we're while talking on a camera, talking into a microphone. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now. See, it takes skill, and it is a necessary component for online engagement. And don't get me wrong, it's not easy, but it doesn't compare to talking and working with people who are right in front of you. Simply put, if you want to really take ministry seriously, then you're going to have to get in front of people. Online isn't enough. And if you continue to try to just be an online minister, I mean, you may be able to do that, but I think you are going to be selling yourself short as well as your potential audience short, because there's building blocks to in-person ministry. Let's break it down to three things. It's character, perception, and skills. Let me show you what I'm talking about. It builds your character when you're in person, because one of the biggest hangups ministers go through is developing their character. The more that your influence grows as a leader, the more that your character needs to grow as well. And when you're online only, you lose touch to the people that you're ministering to. It's just one like. It's just another follower. It's hard to really mentally and emotionally connect actual souls to that one little like. And the demand of your integrity doesn't feel as called upon compared to seeing the people in the room that you're ministering to. It's one thing to see a comment that says this really ministered to me. It's a whole nother level to where you see someone weeping because what you said really impacted them. See, so many beliefs and convictions are developed from small engagements and small conversations and interactions with people before and after times of ministry. And when you're online only, the most that you have are those likes and those curated comments that are typically only surface level. As much as a text can say, this really hit me, just what I needed to hear, it's nothing like seeing the person in front of you telling you that. Now, this builds your character. In person builds your character. The other thing that it does is it builds your perception. Nothing can gain experience like experience itself. Consider this for a moment. If you wanted to learn about like somewhere like Africa, if you wanted to learn about it and the culture of it, would you rather choose someone to teach you who researched online about Africa? Or would you rather someone who traveled and lived in Africa among the people for a year? I think that's without a doubt that if you want to grow your perception about what it is you talk about, you have to experience it with people and hear from them as you go through it together. You know, like one of the big ministry that I'm in right now is ministry in recovery. And it's one thing for someone to share their thoughts and opinions about recovery and to share their research or statistics and ideas and etc. That's nice, but it's another level when you are actually working with people in recovery, when you are walking them through their relapse, when you're sitting with them as they're crying about talking about how hard it is. You know, it's just different level, dog. Like you have to actually be in the thick of it to understand it. And when people who need that kind of ministry, they can tell when you have the experience of it or when you've just learned about it. Y'all feel what I'm saying? It gives you a greater level of perception. And just like referencing that book, Kissing Dating Goodbye, that dude wrote a book all about dating and relationships without having any experience about dating and relationships. It was terrible. It sounded nice and pretty on paper, but it didn't actually work. That's the difference with experience. It gives you good, healthy perception. And finally, being in person gives you skills. See, being in person can dramatically grow and sharpen so many life skills along the way. Being in person gives us opportunity to build these fundamental skills like communication, customer service, event planning, networking, organizational skills, leadership and management, and so many other skills. It only comes through experience. And even just like when it comes to communication, it's Again, don't get me wrong. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm engaging online right now as I'm talking to you, as you're listening to this, as you're watching this. This is online engagement. There's no one in front of me. That takes skill, but it's completely different to in-person communication skills. And when you don't have the opportunity to develop that, you are limiting your ability to minister and grow. Because what happens if, say, you do get an opportunity to minister in person, but all you've done is stuff behind the microphone, you might feel so anxious and intimidated to actually do it that you'll turn it down when you could have actually ministered somewhere. Or maybe you say yes and you go, but you realize that the moment of when you get stage fright and you look at the room full of people, that this is a big different ball game. That this is a lot different than when you're able to pause, re-record, delete, edit, etc. It's different. And it makes me think about when there's a season when we first started the church. I took almost any and every job I could find. And there's a season where I was doing door-to-door sales. And that was one of the toughest jobs I've ever had. You're talking about you going to people's houses, they slamming the door in your face. And there's a study done that doing door-to-door sales for a year is equivalent to doing like 4 years of a communications degree, a public speaking degree, because just the experience of actually trial and error, interacting with people, talking with people in person over and over was compoundedly more, it caused more skills to sharpen than 4 years of sitting in a classroom. Experience is just, it doubles your growth. It quadruples your skill set. You need to get in person. I know that especially when it comes to generational gaps from millennials to Gen Z, we were more intimidated and anxious than ever when it comes to being in person. You got to jump over that hurdle, jump over that anxiety, and just get your feet wet. Honestly, what's the worst that could happen? And you consider this, that it's not, when I'm talking about gaining experience, I'm not just saying to create your own event. I'm talking about going to other people's events, going to other people's things, whatever your niche is that you feel like you're called to. Like for me, I talk about a big niche of mine is recovery. So it makes sense for me to go to other recovery centers, to go to their events, to go to their hosted interactions so that I could rub shoulders with other people who are not only leading the event, but the people attending the event. And you're able to get better grasp, volunteer somewhere and get more experience in person. Y'all dig what I'm saying? Now let's end with 3 takeaways. Number 1, do a self-inventory on your face value when it comes to your online and in-person presence by rating each of those on a scale of 1 to 10. Then ask someone close to you to rate you as well. Number 2, review your building blocks, your character, your perception, and your skills, and determine which one you should focus on developing through in-person ministry events. Do you feel like you need to grow your perception, you have a limited scope, or do you need to grow your character, or you need to sharpen some skills? Whatever it is, determine what that is, and so that you can start focusing on growing that when you attend these in-person events. And finally, number 3, network and participate in someone else's ministry event. Like I've been saying, I'm not trying to tell you to host your own events. I'm telling you to go and rub shoulders with others. Don't recreate the wheel. Go to other people's things so that you can learn from them and it's this open experience, that whether it's volunteering or attending, you're helping, or whatever it is, just go and be in person, rub shoulders, get face-to-face value. All that being said, I hope that this episode was meaningful for you. I hope that was edifying in your leadership. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It really helped me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. Until next time, have a great life.